We have 2 minutes. Have you heard from Director Denstedt? And I show 9:30. We have 9:30.
Good morning. We will call the meeting to order of the Western Municipal Water District regular board meeting for March 19th at 9:30. And Ms. Ford, may we have roll call, please?
Thank you. Good morning. Director Gardner. Director Torres.
Present.
Director Denstedt. Director Risby.
Good morning, I'm here.
Good morning, President Roten.
And I also am here.
Thank you. President Roten, you do have a quorum today.
Thank
I just got
you.
a text from Director Denstedt that there's an accident on the freeway,
Oh,
and so
okay.
she'll be here as soon as they let her through.
All right. As long as she's not in the accident, then okay.
The text did not include that information. I'm assuming since she's texting, though,
I should
she's
say
fine.
we're hoping she's not in that. Okay, yes, I'm sure she's okay. All right, we'll move on to the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'd like to welcome Yoenai. I practiced it, and I still didn't do it right. Guerrero, Engineering Tech 1 Development Services, to lead us in the pledge.
Yes, good morning. If everyone can please stand and place your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
And could you tell us a little bit about your tenure at Western?
Yeah, I've been here at Western for a year and 4 months now. Time has flown by, and I hope to be here for many more years.
All right.
Yes, and
So Ionai's in the Development Services Group.
Yes,
Okay.
we help developers and homeowners get water service for their projects or new homes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to public comments. Do we have any public comments this morning?
We do not.
All right, and then we'll go to the consent calendar, items 5A through D. Any questions? Anyone want to pull
I'll
anything?
move approval.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Director Gardner and a second by Director Torres.
Director Gardner.
Aye.
Director Torres.
Yes.
Director Risby.
Aye.
President Roten.
Yes,
Thank you. The motion carries 4-0.
okay. Mr. Miller, any items to be added to the agenda?
Nothing to add today.
All right, thank you. And then we'll move right into our action agenda. Item 7A, approve a capital budget increase for the supervisory control and data acquisition facilities, but this is a mouthful, facilities control system upgrade project,
We don't ever say that.
otherwise known as
Because
SCADA.
we can't remember what it all stands for. Dean
okay.
Standing Warriors here to
All right.
brief the board. Dean?
Thank you, Craig. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Director. Sorry. Here today to talk about, as you mentioned, supervisory control, data acquisition facilities control system upgrade project. We do have a PowerPoint presentation that we'll go through. It's just really going to speak to where we've been, where we're looking to go, and accomplish through this project and many others that we've accomplished already. So the Recommendation is that the Engineering Operation Water Resources Committee and staff approve a capital budget increase of $800,000 from $1.5 million to $2.3 million for the facilities control system upgrades and the supervisory control and data acquisition implementation project. That is a mouthful. So just to catch us up, Western has been working through our SCADA implementation project. It's a series of projects that look to upgrade our SCADA system, control systems, and our human-machine interfaces, which we'll go over here in a minute. We've completed phase 1 of that implementation plan and are moving into phase 2 with that almost completed as well. This component focuses on the control system piece of that project, which really looks at our remote facilities, bringing in the data from those facilities and giving our operations staff the ability to control those stations remotely and locally at those sites. So this upgrade includes the replacement of legacy control systems and communication systems throughout the district on both of our potable, non-potable, and our collections system for our sewer collections as well. So got control of the slides here. So first slide here, just want to go over the SCADA master plan. We've seen this screen here before this slide, but I always like to throw it up just to remind ourselves how we've walked through this plan and how we've got here. The SCADA master plan, which began in 2016 board approved project, started on the left there in our green box with the SCADA system assessment, going out to all of our facilities and our sites, assessing what we had at the time, moving into the gap analysis there where we really identified where we wanted to go with our system and where we wanted to be moving into the future. And then I put together a series of standards that we were going to walk through to make that happen. So that's where you see the alternatives evaluation. All three of these boxes really feeding into our SCADA master plan and focusing on those 3 core bullet points that you see there, the control systems upgrades, which we're here for today, the communication upgrades, and the security upgrades as well. All of that packaged into our SCADA implementation plan, which we're working through in these 3 phases. Just a summary of the findings that have come through that process of going through that on those 3 core findings that we see here, the control system, the variety of different PLCs that are in our district, programmable logic controllers. What are those? Those are the devices that sit in our control systems that are really the brains of whatever operation is going on there. So they sit inside of control panels. If it's at a pump station, they're automating that pump station to start and stop pumps based off reservoir levels, things like that. No connectivity to our smaller sites for SCADA system, meaning that we had no eyes visibly on that. Staff had to drive out to those sites to perform operations there. No control system standards. This was a big one for us. So anytime we implement and build on our system, we like to have those standards in place, obviously. So we're building to meet expectations and repeat that pattern as well. Moving on to number 2, the network redundancy on core locations. No telemetry at certain sites, as mentioned. The 4th bullet point there, the backbone network not licensed, was a key one again for us, as that kind of put some vulnerability there for us. And we've since sewed that up as well with the project to get that more secure and really just building some reliability in that for us. And then 3, a lot about security. All this wraps in at the end of the day. We want our system to be secure, so we've addressed those 3 bullet points there as well. Being able to walk up to our control systems, what did that look like to protect ourselves, and also from a remote aspect as well. Oops, sorry. So here's our implementation project broken into those 3 phases. The verbiage that you see on this screen is pulled directly from our SCADA master plan itself. As we go through and implement these projects, we do switch the verbiage around, but the core scope of what we're doing remains the same in all of this. So phase 1 you see there is completed, and some of these being board projects. We had the WAN communications design, the control system standards, which was complete, I mentioned a second ago, and also our control room design, which you got to get a tour of a few weeks back of that control room. Moving into phase 2 is where we're at now. Phase one was a lot of the design and getting our standards in place. The first project there, the WAN communications implementation, 2 projects there which are complete, was the tower construction. We put up the 4 65-foot towers. And then on the backbone radio integration, we put our radio network up, licensed frequencies to protect ourselves there. Control system room construction, which you see, and the network design. The 2 bullets that you see there that are labeled as today's request is really what this project folds into, is the operational technology and the SCADA upgrade design. And I'll get into that in a minute, kind of paint a visual picture for you what that looks like. And then there's a 3rd piece there on that, or the last bullet there, I'm sorry, the historian architect design and implementation. And what that really is just how we collect our data, how we store it, and how we move it through our system and make it available to staff. There is phase 3 of this implementation plan, planned for later years out, but that's a lot of capturing what we've done and the system, documenting that, and get our securities in place for that moving forward. A couple pictures here. So I wanted to start out I like to paint that visual picture to what we're actually trying to do. So our picture on the left here, you see that cabinet that's in front of the truck there, roadside, between those 2 yellow poles. That's our control system for that remote site there. On that, you see an antenna that's rising up that's got our radio hardware on it. This is what it looks like pre the upgrade. Behind it, you see a fenced area along the wall there. That's a pipeline coming out of the road, or out of the ground. In that series of connections, we have field devices measuring flow, pressure, those types of things. So all of that is underground conduit tied into this control system here. So this control system controls that certain area there, and it also sends signal back to our servers that collect this data from there. So inside of that enclosure with the open door is where our focus is, and also on that radio tower, you see they're replacing that hardware and replacing that control panel, control system that's there at the site. Picture on the right is really more the same, just another remote site. This is actually on our well field on the Arlington desalter footprint. We've actually already completed these in-house. That's our staff there replacing that control panel that's in that enclosure there. And then again, you see the radio there to the left of that enclosure connecting onto our network to get that data back for us. I do want to make quick mention that this project solely focuses on our remote facilities, does not focus on our treatment plants. We treat the treatment plants as one singular project. There's a lot there, a larger control system, so we focus on those. We've upgraded the Arlington desalter already. RCRA has been upgraded as well, and our focus now is going to turn to the wharf facility to do the automation upgrade there as well. So this is solely our pump stations, lift stations, well sites, things like that for this particular project. A couple more pictures here. This is what we call our control system back panel. The picture on the left, the back panel that you see there on the left is one of the older versions of what we're replacing. The upper piece of that, the upper half of that, you see what looks like a box. That is the PLC with the red wires coming out of the front of it. That's what we're replacing. That's our sole focus, that whole panel there. The one on the right, the panel on the right, is actually what we replace these with. That's in our shop at operations and our maintenance facility. Our staff builds these in-house, and the picture on the right really just depicts what these look like and what the project is out in the field replacing these panels. So most of the time we're able to use the enclosures that surround these back panels, which saves us some money, but sometimes we do have to replace those as well. So project history and budget. So just to label this table here and kind of give you a picture on what we're explaining here. The project tasks on the left are the projects, the board-approved projects that we've walked through. The dates there on board approval. We had the WAN design control system standards and the communication tower and hardware. The far right, we have the capital budget, and this all really adds up to the total of $2.3 million. So we have the 2 first projects there for $250,000, the 2 following projects there that for $500,000. The ask today for the facilities control system upgrade for $800,000, all adding up to that $2.3 million. So both the $800,000 is made up of 2 fiscal capital years. So this fiscal year that we're currently in, 24-25, there's a $600,000 on the board-approved capital plan. And then for fiscal years 25 and 26, there was another 200. We're basically moving those forward together so we can begin this program for the next couple of years. So that's where that falls out. So just as a reminder, our ask is that the Engineering Operation Water Resources Committee and staff recommend the Board of Directors approve a capital budget increase of $800,000 to $1.5 million to $2.3 million for the facilities control system upgrades and the SCADA implementation project. So with that, I will take any questions.
Okay. Any
All right, thanks, Steve.
questions?
Well,
Questions?
Did you want to say something, Craig? Oh,
I'm good.
Public comment?
thank you. Is there any public comment on this item?
We have no public comment.
Okay.
All right, I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
All right. Whenever you're ready.
Director Gardner.
Aye.
Director Torres.
Yes.
Director Risby. President Roten.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries 4-0.
thank you.
Right, thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item B, approve a preliminary budget to commence the Operations Center Fueling Station project. Mr.
Right,
Miller?
Derek's here to brief us on this, but this is part of our response to some of the activities that were happening out of the fires and the wind challenges that we were having. So we kind of went back and rethought our backup plans. And I thought it was important to start moving this forward faster. So Derek could give the board the update on where we stand.
Good morning, Board of Directors. This was originally planned, this project, the Operations Center Fueling Station, was originally planned for fiscal year 2026-27. And we were going to do construction in fiscal year 2028-29. As we said, staff has changed their thinking on this, and we're now recommending accelerating the project. It responds to recent wind and fire events that underscored the need for fuel storage, increasing the fuel storage capacity. During the previous events, we had a hard time trying to locate actual suppliers that would give us fuel, both gasoline and diesel, and we had to go like 3 levels deep before we actually were able to find someone who got us some fuel. A lot of this is driven by the realization that the power is not always necessarily there. Gas stations need power in order to have pumps, and Southern California Edison is using public safety power shutoffs, which means across the region, the power gets turned off. So we do have backup generators that run off of fuel, such as diesel fuel, and during those times, we need to have that diesel fuel in order to keep powering our pump stations. So the proposal right now is allocating $247,000 in this fiscal year to allow staff to do some design and narrow down the project scope. We've done 2 studies on this before, looking at how much storage that we need, and we've determined that we just don't have enough storage on site in order to make it for the emergencies. It's not simple to solve that. It's quite a bit of storage that we need in order to get to 72 hours of emergency storage, and we'll certainly look at maybe extending it longer. The total anticipated budget for this project is $2.47 million. That's a rough number right now. We haven't finished the design, but that's in a future request after we completed the design. So we'll be back in front of the board asking for this. So this investment will align with Western's strategic commitment to superior service by reinforcing additional operational resilience in emergency situations. So again, the ask is to approve a preliminary capital budget of $247,000 for the Operations Center Fueling Station project. and a corresponding amendment to increase the fiscal year 2024-25 board-adopted capital improvement and facilities plan by the same amount under the fleet expansion reserves. And I open this up for any questions.
Okay. Any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. First and foremost, my apologies for being late. There was a little bit of a fender bender on the freeway that was beyond my control. People not paying attention to who's going in front of them, so and all the looky-loos, God bless you. So, second of all, I think this is a very necessary thing that we need to do. We obviously went out to do a tour of the site and looked at a variety of different things out there. I think with each, unfortunately, with each occurrence of emergencies, disasters, and things that come around us, we tend to learn from them, and this happens to be one of those with the LA fires and some of the agencies that we had communication with and learned from and heard from at Metropolitan that were literally out of fuel. Was not a place that we want to be when we're in a critical area of need. So I certainly agree with that. My question is, you know, with the additional fuel that we would put on site and have available, have we ever, and maybe, well, I'm going to ask, have we ever had any problems with securing the fuel? Has anybody ever tried to come in and breach our areas of any kind? And I don't want to put anything that's
Hey, don't give
critical
them any
out
ideas.
there. Yeah, no, for sure. And I don't want to generate anything, and I don't want to cause problems, and I don't want to.
Well, I can
Make
give
a
you-
security
I can-
comment,
I
but-
can give you an answer. Yes, we have, you know, it's very isolated out at operations. And
Yes.
at night, we've had, you know, quite a challenge with people breaking in, coming over the fence. And there's, in fact, during our tour, when we went way down there, there was a bridge that goes across the inlet channel to Lake Matthews. And, you know, we had a really difficult time getting a secure fence there. You know, because people would cut the fence, and then so now we actually welded it shut, so no one can get across there. But it's an ongoing challenge. James is very aware of it. We have live security out there. We have very tight security procedures. Knock on wood, we've been pretty fortunate not to have major loss, but it's certainly a priority for us. And I don't think this will change.
Okay.
We'll still have live security out there with all of our cameras and alarms and all the other things that we do too. But, you know, and a lot of it is our own internal security practices also, to make
Absolutely.
sure that our staff is securing vehicles and gates and fences and all that. So it's just an ongoing challenge. I appreciate the question. I don't see this bringing on any additional risk for us.
Okay, no, and I just want to make sure, because, you know, I fully agree with what we need to do. I just want to make sure that if there's another step that we need to take in order to secure, because now we're talking about a very different product, a very different size that might be very attractive to somebody that is up to no good. I just want to make sure that we're doing what we need to do, and we're giving you the appropriate tools to be able to do all that.
Thank
So-
you.
So,
And in addition to site security, we also worry about you know, having a secure tank and
absolutely.
disasters that could
No,
happen
I
with the
mean, it
tank
just-
and
yeah,
runoff
just-
and all those
just-
things.
it goes the whole gamut.
So, yeah, we're
you know,
very in
so-
tune with
Okay,
that.
no, and with that, I'm happy to move this item for approval.
Okay, I'm going to ask for public comment, though.
I have no public comment.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second.
Just real
whenever you're-
quickly, a
oh,
comment.
I'm sorry, Mike. go
I agree with Director Denseth. This is something that we absolutely have to do. I think our current tank is not easy to get to, and if somebody's going to steal much liquid, they are going to need something mobile with a tank and a pump. And I think it would be challenging, not impossible, but challenging, to get through the gates and to the location of the new tank, which will be somewhere central, and get back out without getting caught. So that doesn't concern me a whole lot. just because of the location and the fact somebody could go in and steal 5 gallons and carry it away, but they're not going to carry away 100 gallons. Unless they're a whole lot bigger than any of us.
Yeah, we hope not.
Yeah. So, that's it.
Okay. Whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Director Gardner,
Aye.
Director Torres,
Yes.
Director Dinstedt,
Aye.
Director Risby, President Roten.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you,
Okay.
directors.
Thank you, Derek. Now we'll move on to 7C, authorize a sport position for Assembly Bill 523. Author Irwin.
Thank you. Oh, you can see Mr. Hadley would like to talk about this.
Yes, he's very anxious. I love it.
And he brought a partner to
I
help him, maybe,
Saw that.
which I'll let him introduce as we go. But I just wanted to kind of set this up a little bit for the board. We don't come to the board to ask for a position on most legislation, because the way that we've handled this since before I was here, actually, is that we approve a legislative platform. The board approves the legislative platform, and the guidance from the board is that as long as bills are in alignment with the board-approved legislative platform, the general manager has the authority to take a support or an oppose or something else. I will bring certain things to the board if it's more controversial, and I actually want to make sure the board approves whatever position that I would want to recommend. If there's legislation that isn't covered in our framework, our legislative platform framework, then I need to come to the board. So this is that case. So we don't have anything in our platform that talks about modifications to the Metropolitan Act for alternate representation. So I thought it was important to bring it forward. Now, what's also happened, to set the stage, I'll let Michael talk about this, but the bill that you have in front of you, Bill 523 by Irwin, Eastern is changing some of the things in that bill based on conversations that Joe and others have been having as they've kind of tested support for the bill. So I'll let Michael and Pakal talk about that.
Sure.
So Michael, give us a story of what's happening.
Michael, before you start, I just want to make a clarification. So in what you just said, there were basically 2 reasons why you would bring this to the board. The first was if it was a controversial topic, which this is not, correct? This is only because it's not specified in our platform.
Correct.
Okay.
And
I just
so-
wanted to
and
make
there
make
could
that
be
clear.
there could be an argument by some that it might be more controversial to some than others.
Oh,
And-
okay.
First up.
And I will make comments, but I'll let Michael say, because I'll give you some reference point from Matt.
Let me also add that the normal process would be Michael would bring this to the ComGov
Oh.
committee, but just like SB 72 is scheduled for hearings in Sacramento in early April, my thought was that this bill might also be scheduled for hearings in early April, so I didn't want to
Yeah.
put it off too long. I wanted to take a position to help get it through committees if that does help. So with that, I probably said everything Michael's going to say
Just
now.
about.
Ditto.
But say it anyway, Michael.
That's okay. Good morning, President Roten, members of the board. Michael Hadley, your Government Relations Officer here at Western Water. I have before you today Assembly Bill 523, which staff is recommending to take a support position on. This bill comes from the sponsors of our friends at Eastern Municipal Water District, where they very thoughtfully realized that in the case where a metropolitan member agency who only has 1 member to the board is unable to attend a meeting, they're unable to cast a vote for that meeting, okay? That's not unusual, right? But in the scenario where a member agency has multiple board members to that board, like the Water Authority or Los Angeles, if one of those board members is missing, a board member can cast a vote on their behalf. And so there's an issue of equity there where their voting percentage isn't changed, but then with 1 member agency, your vote just isn't counted in that meeting. So in order to try and address this and several other benefits that they feel like it would provide, they introduced AB 523, which would allow member agencies of Metropolitan Water District to designate a board member, another board member, to vote on their behalf in certain circumstances, certain times of the year, and had a sunset date to that. So, or to the bill, to make sure that as it's getting implemented, if there's any challenges Metropolitan has with the implementation of the bill, that it would sunset and they wouldn't have to continue that anymore. So, with that, it also allows some, if that designated board member, board alternate were, that if they're maybe going to be the next potential board member to the board, they're getting that in-person experience by going to the board meetings and having those experiences there. And then finally, so the concern that has been raised about the legislation is the idea that by adding alternates to the board, you're expanding the board essentially. So instead of having the 38-member Metropolitan Board, now you've got 38 members plus all the alternates that you have to keep in mind, so that if, maybe there's different personalities or what have you, like there's just a lot more to handle in that scenario, and an even larger board. So that's kind of the perception of some of the concerns that have been cast about this. But as Craig mentioned, the bill is going to be changing though, but I still recommend today a support position regardless of the changes. It's going in a different direction, but instead of having me talk about that, I'm going to have my colleague from Eastern Municipal Water District, Pascal Cornejo Reynoso, obviously the sponsor of the bill, talk about those changes and be able to answer any questions you all have on the technical side of the house.
Thanks, Michael.
Sure.
Yeah, so Michael teed that up perfectly. We're kind of in the strange part of the legislative session where we're talking about bills in kind of a different form than what they might currently be in writing. And so we've been having really extensive conversations with Metropolitan and their leadership, as well as their legal team, with other member agencies, and just with other engaged stakeholders. And so what we've determined is that a proxy model might be more appropriate. Essentially, what that would authorize is that a member agency from Eastern or Western, or really any agency that only has one seat on the board, they can appoint another sitting member of the Metropolitan Board to cast a vote on their behalf in the event that they can't be present at a board meeting, or in the event that they can't participate via teleconference for whatever reason. And we think that that is probably going to be the more productive and feasible option going forward. At the end of the day, it's our goal to really create a piece of legislation that is beneficial to Metropolitan and to their member agencies. One really beneficial aspect of this proxy model is that it's already kind of tried and true. San Diego County Water Authority utilizes a proxy model. They also have a very large board to manage, and it's been our experience that they've had a relatively smooth time implementing that proxy model. And so it's been really helpful to be able to point to that as an option for Metropolitan. So as Michael mentioned, Metropolitan will be taking this bill up for an official board position on April 8th. We do anticipate that staff will be recommending some type of support position, which we're very pleased with. And then we also anticipate the bill to be heard in the Assembly Local Government Committee at some point in April. Right now it's looking like April 30th, but there is a chance that that could be bumped up earlier just based on legislative calendars and such. So another aspect that we want to really reiterate is that this is an optional policy. Under no circumstance would a member agency that only has one board member be obligated to appoint a proxy. This is really just another tool in the tool chest. We know that metropolitan meetings require a lot of time and a lot of commitment from board members, and it's a lot on their schedules. Director Denstent is, I think, a model student. She has a great attendance record, and so maybe this might not be something that Western utilizes all that often, but for other agencies, we do see it providing a great amount of flexibility and really just a modest improvement to the Metropolitan Act, which at this point is almost 100 years old. Our agencies operate a lot differently than they did 100 years ago. The communities that we serve look a lot different, and so these are just kind of things that we're trying to modernize and get up to the times with. So I'm happy to answer any questions from the board.
Any questions?
I guess I'll wait for reference.
Yeah, I do have a question, but do you want to go
Do you guys want to
first?
ask questions first, or do you want to hear what? I guess, yeah, we get that way they don't stand the whole time. I have a few questions.
Okay. Go ahead, Director Torres.
Well, hi, thanks for visiting us.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I just have a couple of questions. I think it makes sense that we don't lose 100% of our vote if other agencies are able to cast a percentage or even their complete 100%. Are there any of our local legislators supporting or co-authoring this bill?
We don't have co-authors yet. I think because we're at a point where we're still considering some more or less substantive amendments. The bill hasn't been circulated and other co-authors haven't signed on yet, but it's 100% our intention to get as many members on both sides of the aisle to sign on to this bill. And we would be sure to do a really thorough outreach campaign to all of our local officials.
Okay. And then how would this impact compensation? At least our board just recently approved a different compensation package for our board member, our representative.
Sure.
If there is a I guess in this, like where it's moving towards a proxy vote, does
Yeah.
that mean our member is still compensated or does that make sense?
Sure. Well, it's my understanding that because the board member isn't present, then there wouldn't be a requirement for compensation for that specific meeting. Should probably check in with our council before I say anything definitively.
Yeah, I agree with that. Pakal doesn't know our bylaws, but I think that would just go to attendance. And if this were passed and, we assigned our proxy vote to Eastern, it would only be because our director couldn't be there, so they wouldn't get compensated for not being there. That'd be my interpretation, and Mr. Ballinger may have a different one, but I think that's where we would start.
Yeah, that's all I needed.
That's it?
Those are my only questions that
Okay, I do have
else?
one.
Yeah.
I just have one. So the proxy that could be appointed in the situation where the agency representative couldn't be there has to be another Met board member? So it doesn't come from the agency of the person who's absent?
That's correct.
Okay.
It has to be a sitting board member of the Metropolitan Board.
I just want to make sure I understood that. All right, thank you.
Of course.
Okay, any other
Fazia?
questions? Because
Mike?
I'll chime in.
I'm going to ask, I think this is more procedural, but I've seen it happen so many times in proxy votes,
Yeah.
right? Hey, Fazia, vote this way for me, and Fazia still takes the vote she wants. How is that being discussed in any way?
It is.
Okay.
And the proxy model does give the assigning agency the latitude to pick someone to vote on their behalf, but there's really no way to dictate how that proxy is going to vote. They still have every right to vote on an action item as they see fit. So it's really the judgment of the assigning agency to make that call. If there was an instance where an assigning agency felt that there could be an opportunity for their vote to be misinterpreted or cast incorrectly, then that could be the case, and perhaps they wouldn't assign a proxy in that situation.
So it's the proxy, if a representative is assigning a proxy, is it throughout the year or is it per meeting if they cannot attend?
It's per meeting. So
Okay.
the assigning agency would have to make that notice at least 24 hours in advance.
Okay.
And the member can change who they assign as proxy,
Okay.
can change from meeting to meeting if they're utilizing one.
Thank you. That's
Okay. Now I think we're ready for
All right, you ready now? Okay. So there's been a lot of discussion about this topic. It has gone from one point to the other, for sure. We've had very honest discussions at caucus meeting for our delegation for the Inland Empire. And there were some big concerns that have been raised, in all fairness, right? People at Metropolitan, there is a past history of opening the act, which this is what this is doing. This legislation actually opens up the Metropolitan Act, and it makes people very nervous to do that. There has been some past discussion over some past legislative stuff that when the act opened, it didn't quite go the way that people wanted to, expected, anticipated. Substantive language was pulled out and changed and all those types of things. I know that the legislator that you're talking with is in communication with Las Virgenes as well, because it's their representative up in Ventura.
Right.
And so I've had conversations with that rep up there, Jay Lewitt. They have no intention of trying to do anything unexpected and squirrely, right? So because that's also been the thing. Hey, we get this on the floor, they do a gut and amend, they change and pull things, which never makes anybody happy because you send it in for something and do something else. As far as a proxy, I think this is probably the preferred method rather than doing the alternate, because you actually have another board member. And that really goes down to your ability to be able to build the relationship and know who you're passing your proxy off to. Because obviously, say for instance, if I don't know, wanted to go to Europe for a month, that's ever in my life, and take a vacation and not be there during a Met vote, I would obviously have some very strong conversations with who that's going to be, and it would probably be to our sister agency that has more alignment with this, or somebody within our internal caucus that we are very closely aligned to, that I can have an honest conversation, because I'll go back and look at the voting record and say, hey, that's not what we discussed. What are you doing? So my question would be, and this is just for sake, because, you know, like I said, you know that this has been all over the board,
Yeah.
and there's some people that are fine with it, and there's others that are not fine with it. If, say for instance, you do have somebody, you issue a proxy to it, and they vote, and they change their vote midstream of past what you've discussed, is there an ability to go back and redo anything at a subsequent meeting, should you want to change your vote if you're on? So, yeah, because, right? No, so that's something that, you know, needs to be known, right?
Yeah.
So it's going to be an interesting conversation to come up, but I think the proxy method is better and getting more ground than doing an additional, because like you said, there's already 38 members. And the other thing that wasn't discussed here too, which has been discussed at Met but not here, was the fact that after you reach a certain percentage of voting for the assessed value, you get an additional member once you hit the 5% threshold. Now, we eventually will be there, but we don't know how many years that's going to be. I mean, the predictors are it could happen in 5 years, it could happen in 25 years. We just don't know, because it's dependent upon the evaluation and growth and everything else. Right. It'll be interesting to see what the valuations come out for LA, because their percentage is going to go down because of the tax base for the fires and, you know, just the devastation that they've experienced, because they're only going to be able to assess values on land and not on structure. So it's going to be interesting, because those percentages will flux, but as they build and grow back, their evaluation, everything will flop again. So all of those conversations are happening and what's going to take place. And really what it's about is, you know, Metropolitan, at what point, somebody give me history on this, they had more than 50 board members, didn't they? They had like 57 board members at one time, and then the act was changed and it dropped it down to the 38, something like that.
It's changed, and then legislation was passed that no agency will lose a board member
Yes.
anymore. So right now, as it stands, unless there's different legislation passed, it'll never go below the 38.
Right. So,
But it could go up.
but it could go up and increase again because of the evaluation. So eventually, Inland Empire folks, who knows when that'll happen, will get stuff. IEUA will probably be first, and then us, and then Eastern,
Right.
just
Yeah.
with the percentage and the incline that's been going on.
Yeah, and when that does happen, then we would lose the opportunity to use that
That
proxy,
proxy,
because this
right.
still only applies to agencies with one seat.
Right. So that's the benefit there, rather than going with the original proposal of having a designated alternate, and the complication of who's going to show up at the meeting, who do we need to bring up to speed, you know, because it's a lot of flow of information, and that's really kind of what has been the outlying concern. So, so I think you guys have gained more traction, certainly with the proxy, and you know, we'll kind of see where it goes. I have every confidence in the world with our partner agency that they will make good on their commitments. So if there are other things dropped into the bill,
Yeah.
it's going to get killed. It's going to
100%.
die.
To your point, that's been perhaps the most sensitive issue about this piece
Yes.
of legislation in general. And we have certain commitments from the author to really just focus on this scope. She's aware that if there are committee amendments or other hostile amendments that come in at any point throughout the legislative process, that we would then oppose the bill. There's a possibility that she could drop the bill entirely. We want this to be tailored to this specific issue and not go outside of that.
No, absolutely. So thank you for, you know, I just want to thank Jeff Armstrong and Joe for just listening to everybody's concerns and really taking that to heart so that you guys could craft something that, you know, has more to it.
Right.
And really is going to be more of a useful tool than something that's going to really set off a panic button with everybody. So I appreciate you guys taking the time and listening to us.
Absolutely. Thank you all.
I have, you kind of jogged my thought process. One clarifying question.
Sure.
So the representative from the agency would, do I understand correctly, they would have sole authority to choose the proxy? It wouldn't be anything that has to go back to boards or anything like that?
Correct.
Okay, okay.
Metropolitan would receive notice from the assigning agency and the assigning board member more specifically, and then they would do their administrative process to make sure that that board member who's going to be the proxy for the following day's meeting is identified.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Madam President.
Yes, sir.
Um,
You have a question?
Just a couple of comments. I like the proxy idea. I think it is safer than a second member. It's cleaner, and I don't think it will have some of the opposition that an alternate member would have. Our Met representative doesn't miss meetings. Although, as she pointed out, she might like to at some point, but she doesn't.
break.
She doesn't want to see us not represented.
Right.
So I see this as something that Western might not possibly ever use, but having the ability to do it, and obviously, any agency that is appointing somebody to vote as a proxy for them is going to pick a person they trust and believe will vote as they wish.
Right.
And it could even be possible that a member who has got a proxy is going to cast opposing votes on something, one on behalf of their agency and one on behalf of whoever appointed them. I don't think that's too likely. I think it'd be more likely that a person would pick somebody who thinks like they do,
Right.
or at least their agencies have the same position on whatever is up. But I think this is the right way to go. I'd like to offer a motion that we support the bill if it is amended to the proxy method, and that it come back to us if that amendment doesn't happen, and we'll make a decision whether we want to support it. If it stays alternate as presently written, then it would come back to us and we make a decision whether we want to support that or not.
Just to be clear, your motion is to support the bill if it's proxy.
Right.
Not as it's,
Right.
not as we have it right now.
Not as
and
it's written.
recommend.
It would come back to us for consideration if it stays as written.
Yeah, we're waiting on confirmation from Legislative Council. We put that change in last week. So we expect
Yeah.
to see the bill in
I-
print in the coming weeks.
I don't think it's going to create an issue, but at least I feel better with our board
Sure,
directly supporting the proxy.
absolutely.
Would that, I mean, you know what,
Support if amended.
Yeah.
support if.
Yeah, I mean, literally, support if amended to a proxy model as opposed to an alternate model.
Would your vote change if it was alternate?
I don't know. Want to talk about it some more?
You would prefer.
I think as I understand the motion is, if it's not amended to a proxy model,
Bring it
then
back.
we would come back to the board before we support it.
Yes.
I will second that motion.
Okay. Any more discussion or questions? Right. Any public comments?
We have none.
Okay. Whenever you're ready.
Just one moment, please. We're going to go old school. Director Gardner,
Aye.
Director Torres,
Yes, but I want to point that I would have supported either way.
Director Dinstedt,
Aye.
Director Rizvi,
Aye.
President Roten.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries 5-0.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks for
Pikal.
being here.
And Michael, thank you, Michael.
And thanks for carrying that.
I'll just add also that I think that this is an important concept because it's a fairness issue.
Yes.
And I
Yes,
think
absolutely.
Director
I agree.
Torres
I
already
agree.
brought this up. If the sole one representative is, I think, 21 agencies of the 26 only have one representative. And so if they don't show up for meetings,
Oh, I didn't know it was
that puts even more weight on the other entities that have multiple representatives. So I really do think it's an important
I agree.
element to be resolved.
And in the Inland Empire, we have what, 3 votes? Right?
Y-
It's us,
uh,
Eastern.
Yes,
IUA.
depending on how you circle the Inland Empire, but
That's
IUA,
Riverside,
Eastern
San
and
Bernardino, as
Western,
far as I'm concerned.
that's one. Three Valleys has one.
Oh, three, yeah. But does that come in?
Three Valleys is LA.
Yeah, but Three Valleys and also MODOC. So
Oh.
MODOC,
Is Orange County.
we tend to,
Caucus.
We're-
yeah.
But the,
tend to go more along those lines.
but the Inland Empire has 3 votes. If one is missing, we have now 2 votes, and LA has whatever they have.
They still have their 5.
That's, yeah. Like,
5 weighted
You
heavily.
gotta baby
Yeah.
and protect those votes as far as I'm concerned, with whatever
Yeah.
form you want to do it, but I agree.
Okay. I think we're ready to move on to reports. General Counsel. Do you have a report, Jeff? No, no worries.
I did, let me see if I can work these new things. I did provide a printout of some new legislation. One that I'll highlight, it's kind of technical and staff deals with it with some of our consultants, is an amendment to some of the provisions in the government code dealing with hiring independent contractors and consultants who sometimes might bid on later phases of a project that they have really good knowledge about. And this amendment to that government code provides some more flexibility for us and for our staff. So there's some other bills, but that was one that I wanted to highlight for you. And if you have questions about the other ones, feel free to ask.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? No. All right, we'll move to general manager and staff reports, please. Mr.
All right.
Miller.
First off, we have a plug for the Riverside County Water Task Force, which is this Friday at 7:30. We're going to be talking about emergency preparedness. We had several requests to talk about the fires. So staff did a really good job of not just limiting it to fires, because it's also droughts and floods and other things too. So be a great program, so tune in. My recent activities, we're working really hard with Jay Lund and 2 other professors from UCs, UCLA and Merced. Jay Lund is from Davis, to put together an evaluation of the economics of not developing water supply. So it's kind of like, if SB 72 doesn't get passed and we don't build more water supply, what happens to the economy of this state? So we've got a draft of that document. Our team of GMs has given them comments back, so we're hoping to get that by the end of this month done. And that'll be a very important talking paper for when we meet with legislators. And it'll be a really good tool for our board to use as we talk with our communities and our legislators. I was at the TMG group in Temecula last week. We did an update on water issues. So it was myself and Elsinore and Rancho and Eastern all speaking to that group. So that was really fun. They're a lively group. They have some kind of interesting, not interesting, biting questions, you know?
Very interesting folks.
Yeah.
What is TMG?
Myriad
Oh,
Temecula
okay.
group. It's a little bit like a Chamber of Commerce group, but it's
A lot of
In-
entrepreneurs, business
invite only.
people, and it is invitational.
it's a business group.
Yeah, it is, they're very business-centric.
Very engaged in water and very much paying attention to the kind of the conflict between the federal government position right now on water and the state's position on water. So it was actually really fun and interesting to talk with them. Director Torres and I went to the regional advisory group called RAC last week and did what RAC does. That's a good question. I'll let Director Torres answer what RAC. No, I won't put her on the spot. Actually, it's challenging for the electeds because it's the RAC and the TAC. TAC is the Technical Advisory Committee, and this is the group. There's lots of TACs out there, right? So it's very confusing. But this is the group that pays for the operations of the City of Riverside's wastewater plant. So Harupa Community Services District, Edgemont, and Rubidoux, and the city all have to agree on the cost sharing of the operations of that plant. So that's this group. So almost all the work happens in the technical advisory group that has no electeds, but the RAC, which is the electeds, has to approve financial reconciliations and other things. And so they don't meet very often. This is the first time we've met, I think, in 2 years. I don't think Director Torres has ever been to a meeting before, which is kind of the case for half the electeds that are at the meeting. So we always have to go back and remind everyone what we're doing there and why we're there. The important thing is that we've hired a consultant to come in and recalculate all the formulas for these complicated reconciliations so that everyone is paying a fair share. Western doesn't pay anything. We don't really have a dog in the fight, except that we have an agreement with the city to discharge water to the river. And that's why we're there. And so we're there to make sure that we pay attention to the discharges to the river because it helps us meet our 1969 legal obligations to provide flow to the river. So that's why Director Torres is there. So this consultant is redoing the formulas. Rick and his team are kind of leading the consultant, but we're leading it on behalf of the agencies that are paying. So we're kind of a neutral party. And so that's why I volunteered us to do this, but it's all being paid for by everyone else. But we're holding the contract to do it. So that's happening, and the next RAC committee will be in the fall, and they'll review the new formulas and hopefully take an action to agree on the reconciliation so the city can write checks back to their member agencies. I accompanied Director Denstedt to a really interesting dinner at Met last week. Some of the Met directors are kind of held hostage on Monday nights up there between the committee meetings on Monday and the board and committee meetings on Tuesday. And so we took that opportunity, and Eastern organized a dinner so that we could collaborate and get to know some of the other board members. And so really valuable meeting and very fun to attend and very, very interesting to hear some of the other agencies and their perspectives on things.
You didn't talk about the best part.
It was Director Denstedt's birthday.
It was Craig's birthday too. And you know what? Thank you to Eastern for doing a very special birthday dessert for each one of us. That we got a plate that had
happy birthday and our names on it in chocolate with a special dessert with a birthday candle, and everybody sung for us. So just saying, it was, you know.
It was very nice.
It was very nice and very thoughtful of them to do, so.
California Water for All, I had a couple of really good meetings since the last board meeting. I met with Utica Water and Power Authority, which I didn't know where they were. But they have a really active general manager who's very active at Aqua. And they're kind of around the Sacramento area they're kind of the headwaters of a lot of the tributaries that drain down into the Delta. And Joel Metzger is the general manager, and he also is heading up the headwaters subcommittee at Aqua. So when we hear about voluntary agreements and what the state board is doing with flows that come down into the rivers and environmental obligations, he's heading up the work group at Aqua that's watching that. And so I found it very interesting that they were so interested in California Water for All. He was very aware of what it was, wanted to be a supporter of it.
Nice.
And he's also on the ledge committee, or the head of the ledge committee for, I'm not going to get this right, it's the Mountain Watershed Association. That's close. But that's a lot of these smaller entities that are up in the mountains. And so for California Water for All, it's bringing another group into the support position. So,
Nice.
we've had Ag, we have Northern California, we've had Sacramento Valley, we have a ton of Southern California. And now these are kind of the headwaters groups that are saying, no, we're on board, this is important and it's smart and we need to be involved. So that was really, really good. The other interesting meeting that I had was with Chief Malloy in Murrieta when we were talking about fires. He reached out to me, he said, I just want to make sure we're on the same page about fires. This is going to be talked about by everybody. And so after we finished that conversation, we talked about SB 72, and he said, well, I'm actually the incoming president of the statewide Fire Chiefs Association, and I would love to bring this for their support. So that's in progress right now, which is really good. What hopefully this will lead to is support from the Firefighters Association, which is all of the firefighters, not just the chiefs. And so we're going to be pushing hard for that. So that's bringing another group into the bill also.
I can help with that as well.
Great.
Yeah, there are some individuals that are very high and involved with that organization with the association side of it. So
Yep.
if I need to make connections, I can help there.
We may utilize that. I think we're going in a really good direction there. I've been super busy at Metropolitan on the business model. We are generating our first report to the camp task force. So this will be a recommendation on 7 business model refinements and kind of a schedule for about 9 others. So this is kind of the culmination of our first work since October. And, this is meeting monthly all day up at Metropolitan, trying to figure out modifications that we can make. So we're drafting that report, putting a PowerPoint together. We present this to the camp committee next Wednesday. So a ton of work going into that. Want to cover the board rate workshops. We've had 2 great workshops. Appreciate the board's involvement in that and asking good questions. I really appreciate staff's really huge effort to get that in front of the board for those workshops. So that's going really well. Again, like I said the other day at the Finance Committee, this is starting, we're in the middle of a long process. If questions come up or you hear things from your community and you have questions, just forward them my way and we'll make sure it's addressed at a public meeting, committee meeting or board meeting. And we're building towards the April 9th setting of a public hearing for approval, or I should say consideration, in June. And we've got a lot of community meetings planned. So we've got 3 sessions with the community planned. We also have a ton of sessions with various community leader groups, like the chambers and other groups. So very busy calendar. I was at San Bernardino Valley's board meeting yesterday. They took an action to support the San Bernardino Basin Optimization Plan. I'll be bringing that to you in April. So they went first. We both have to approve that. And this is funding the consultant work to develop a long-term plan to optimize that basin and secure water supplies in that basin. That basin is on a water level decline, and it's been in a decline for a long time. The safe yield was set in 1969 as part of the 69 judgment, and the hydrology that they used has changed. And that shouldn't be a surprise to anyone with climate change. And so all of the parties in San Bernardino are engaged in this effort to figure out, okay, we got to address that. How do we address that long term? So this is the effort to do that. And as a water master, we are splitting the effort between Heather and myself, 50-50 between the 2 agencies for that consultant work. So I'll be coming back to you. The San Bernardino board did approve it unanimously yesterday. Let's see what else. Talked about board workshops. Oh, I want to hand it over to Rick. Wanted to just highlight a couple things on the investment report that's listed as an informational item. So this was kind of brought to my attention that, hey, sometimes there's some important information in these informational items. They are informational items because we didn't really want to make presentations, or you already know it's our way to put it on the agenda and pass that information along to you and the public without doing a presentation. If we did a presentation on all of them, they would just be action items instead of informational items. But I do think that every once in a while it would be helpful to just highlight a couple of things. So we are looking at the investment report, and I want Rick to just talk just briefly about reserves in there.
All right, thanks, Greg. Well, I always think these things are important, so I appreciate the opportunity. On the investment report this month, and you'll notice it's for the month of January, the thing to highlight is it's a pretty significant increase by about 13 million from month to month, getting up to about 297 million. The major reason there, and I'd alluded to it at a previous finance committee meeting, is there's a few months during the year where we receive the majority of our property taxes. January is the biggest of those months, along with April. So of that $13 million increase, 12 of it is property taxes coming in. The other $1 million is essentially just a change in the value of the investments, and that happens when interest rates change, which they do daily. And so you've got that. I did want to also highlight another aspect. So our LAIF balance as of now is about 41 million. So this is after all the property taxes have come in and other sorts of things. What this is really getting to is staff have done a deep dive into making sure we have a minimum amount in our bank accounts, because we don't earn interest on that, and seeing how much we can safely move over so it's actively invested in earning interest on behalf of our ratepayers. So we've been able to find about 12 million that we could actively invest that wasn't before, which, just to put in perspective, is about $500,000 extra in interest per year that we're getting at current rates. And so that'll be a direct benefit to our customers. That, and just to follow up, the board had authorized us opening up a camp account, that new investment option, and that'll be completed by the end of the month. So,
All right.
if there's any
Thanks, Rick.
questions.
All right. On the treated water surcharge. So the treated water surcharge is super complicated, and Catano, the CFO at Met, has circulated kind of a recommendation that'll be part of what goes to camp, so that is, it's preliminary still. So Rick and our team did a great job getting 26 member agencies to agree to changing this is super complicated. And you might guess that not everyone agrees on how it should be, the surcharges should be changed. So I would prefer to wait until we have a recommendation to the Met committee before I talk about it too much, because it might change.
Okay. Can I
Huge
ask
amount of work, though.
a question about, Rick, what you just reported on? So was that information on a particular page in this document that we have?
So you'll see in the investment report, market value ending in 297 million, and beginning at
Oh.
282 on that front cover page.
Yes.
That's what I was alluding to, and I was just explaining the rationale behind it.
Okay. And then the LAIF, is that on that page too?
If you see a few lines down, local agency investment fund, you'll see it beginning at a balance of about 16 million and ending that
Oh,
month at about
yes.
28. Yes, that's what I'm referring to.
Okay.
All right, let's keep rolling here to the water supply update. Now, to the board members, I'm starting to see the trend here. When Ryan presents, it's bad news. When Ryan lets Josh present, it's usually good news. So you can always see what's coming.
He's very kind.
They're going to change it up to throw me off, but I've got the trend now. Josh?
He's very kind, thank you. Good morning, President Roden, members of the board. Happy to be here today. Great to see everyone. We'll jump right in. And we do have a little video that'll play in the background as I narrate here, just to show you we can do things with PowerPoint. So we'll begin with the March snow survey from Phillips Station. On February 28th, DWR conducted the snow survey using long aluminum snow samplers, as they call them, extracting core samples to measure both snow depth and water content to provide valuable ground truth data, as they call it. DWR reported that while snowpack, the statewide snowpack increased, Southern California's levels still trail behind Northern California. And you'll notice that in a few slides here. The latest snow survey results presented a mixed picture for 2025. If you look at the table at the bottom there, it's a comparison between the 2 years. The water content was measured at 13 inches this year, which is lower than last year's 18 inches. Similarly, the snow depth was 34 inches, which was 47 last year. This results in a 58% of average to date, a notable drop from last year's 77%. However, looking at the statewide figures below, you'll see that it's a little more positive trend. The water content statewide is over 19 inches, slightly higher than last year's. So this reflects steady snowpack statewide with 85% of the average to date. And then here we're going to build a little bit of a picture. So you'll see that it starts with the quote at the top right there from the Department of Water Resources. February storms helped snowpack, but regional disparities remain. So I kind of wanted to walk through and start at Northern California here. Looking at the average for Northern Sierra snowpack in the shaded blue, you'll see that the snowpack line is tracking pretty close to average at about 90%. When we look at the Central California, we see the snowpack is tracking a little lower than the green shaded average, so it's about 70%. And if we work our way over to Southern California, you'll see the trend there is going down for 60%. So looking at these charts, we see the regional disparity they're discussing here between Northern, Central, and Southern Sierra Nevada snowpacks. Many storms of the season missed the southern half of the state. So the statewide snowpack average kind of masks the disparity as an average, but really you can see Southern California is a little bit struggling there with snowpack. On the left, we see Mr. and Mrs. Miller and the woolly mammoth. They're doing some snowpack reconnaissance on his vacation. In the Northern Sierra, the precipitation is about 120% of normal as of Monday, so it's doing pretty well, with the snowpack at 107% after the recent snow. Looking up at the upper Colorado River Basin, both the precipitation and snowpack are hovering just below average, which leads us to the state reservoirs. For today's presentation, we brought back the Big Six mega reservoirs, which are made up by Shasta, Orville, Trinity, San Luis, New Malones, and Don Pedro, with a combined capacity of nearly 17 million acre-feet. Looking at these key reservoirs, As of mid-March, overall storage remains strong, with 2025 levels higher than 2023 and matching last year at 83% full for this time of the year, or nearly 14 million acre-feet. The state's 6 major reservoirs are currently at 115% of normal. At the end of February, DWR announced an increase in the state water project allocation to 35%, up from 20%. As of Friday, DWR increased the federally mandated flood control releases from Lake Oroville to safeguard downstream communities. Water is being discharged through the Hyatt Power Plant for energy production and via Oroville's dam main spillway due to recent atmospheric rivers. And then just a brief reminder on the right on how we started the 2025 water year at 5% of state water project allocation and slowly reached 35% that we're at right now. We'll continue to track and see if the rain and snow can nudge it a bit further.
It's hidden.
That would be illegal.
Last month, we saw some headlines regarding Shasta and Oroville, with Shasta, the state's largest reservoir, rising over 22 feet. Lake Oroville is seeing 20,000 cubic feet per second coming into the lake, prompting DWR to release more from the Oroville Dam. And as of yesterday, DWR is increasing the outflows from the lake from 10,000 cubic feet per second to 15,000 cubic feet per second due to the recent atmospheric rain. And a really neat trick that I learned about the cubic feet per second is it's about a basketball. So Metropolitan, I was on a tour on Friday, and they said, picture a basketball with every CFS. So picture 10,000 coming in to this lake, and picture 15,000 going out, right? Quite a bit of basketballs for those sports enthusiasts.
One basketball.
Every second.
Every second. And then turning to our local watershed, we're still below average, shown in the red lines. Although with recent rain, we've seen a rise from 15 inches last month, as I reported to you, to nearly 24 inches between the 3 watersheds. However, Diamond Valley Lake remains at 98% full and Lake Matthews at 84% full. So we do see some healthy reservoir levels locally. Now looking at MWD supply and demand balance, starting from the bottom up with the currently estimated Colorado River supplies at 780,000 acre-feet. We then add the 35% state water project allocation of approximately 670,000 acre-feet, making the current estimated supply of 1.45 million. And what you'll see here is now they've kind of swapped. Last month, the supply was on the bottom and the demands were on the top. We had more demands than supply. This month, we finally reached that. We slightly went above. So where we're at what they call, we're now at a balanced state in metropolitan side of things. So we're really happy to see that because that means they don't have to dip into storage. So really good story there. And this month, we wanted to include a few relevant highlights from February and March. First is a post from National Engineers Week in February highlighting the importance of strategy in water, sustainability, and resources that helps plan for today and generations to come. Also in February, MWD released its 25th annual report on achievements in conservation, recycling, and groundwater recharge, underscoring the continued investments and progress in securing a resilient water supply for the region. March is Women's History Month, and we wanted to take a moment to recognize the incredible contributions of women in water, including the dedicated women on our board. Leadership, expertise, and commitment help shape the future of California's water resources. From field operations to policy making, women play a vital role in securing our water future, and we all truly appreciate the impact today and every day. And lastly, St. Patrick's Day may be about luck, but when it comes to water management, we know that smart planning is what really makes a difference. So no 4-leaf clovers needed. Though if you find one, maybe you can wish for some more rain in the right places. With that, I thank you and happy to take any questions.
Hopefully rain grows more 4-leaf clovers.
Hey.
Mike, do you have a question?
I'll add
Oh.
one more number. Josh was talking about the number of basketballs going by in a second. 15,000 CFS release. That's released to protect flood control storage. So that's basically just being sent to the ocean. 15,000 CFS, the conversion to acre-feet per year is a multiplier of 2. So that's 30,000 acre-feet per day is being released to the ocean. That's Western's annual water demand from Metropolitan. So basically, the amount that we take in a year is being released every day right now to the ocean. That's why, we need storage. That should be released to another facility to be stored, not sent to the ocean.
So the 15, I'm sorry, was it?
15,000 CFS.
1,000 per second, I thought.
Yeah,
you
that's
said.
cubic feet per second.
Okay, per second. So you times that by 2 to get the
Acre feet
but
per year.
Per year? Or, oh,
per year.
I thought you said.
No, acre feet,
day.
that's acre feet, which is 30,000 acre feet
Per second?
per day,
Per day.
which is how much we use an entire year.
Okay, so Western is 1 year.
A lot of math. There's a lot of math going on
Yeah.
there.
We're going to test that next month.
I know.
Okay. Mike, I saw you had your hand
Yeah,
on the
it's
button.
just along those lines, the releases from Shasta and Oroville to make room for water storage when the spring runoff comes and more storms, were greater than 5 million acre feet that flowed out the Golden Gate. And that's enough to fill Sites Reservoir 3 times, if only we had Sites Reservoir, with a little leftover.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an impressive and depressing number.
Very much.
So I had a question, and Craig, I think, sort of partially answered it. Looking at the slide, state reservoir levels. So we hear about this, okay, I hear about this on social media. Water going out under the Golden Gate, blah, blah, blah. And of course, people are, and I shouldn't say blah, 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 it's very important. But I should say et cetera, et cetera. And then you see the angry comments of, oh, this shouldn't be going out, la, la, la. But the reality is, and I think I've asked this before, there's nowhere else to put it. Is that what I'm understanding correctly? So we're looking at these reservoirs and they look pretty healthy and they have to leave their space at the top for flood control. I get that. But we have to keep those at a safe level in order to absorb anything in the next month or 2 as the snow melts, or 3, whatever it is. So when people are up in arms about it going out to the ocean, I mean, should I just be saying build more storage, build more storage, build more storage? Is that what the answer really is? Because it's like, okay,
Yes.
yeah, it's great to go on and complain.
Infrastructure. There might be storage spaces. There might not be a way to move it there.
Oh,
There's
that could
there are so many. There might be tons of plans to build enough storage to not have to release, but then we have CEQA and all those other things pushing those projects out 30, 40 years. So yeah, it's build.
So it's really storage and conveyance, which I knew
But
that.
there is yes, build more infrastructure is the answer.
Yeah.
But it's not as simple as it sounds.
No, I realize that. It's just that when I see people go on there and they're upset, and rightly so, there's usually not a solution offered, or even a suggestion. Once in a while there is, but usually it's just a complaint. And it's like, come on, you people, start talking about the solution.
And I think that your point is a really good one, because just to say you shouldn't release that water,
Yeah.
stop doing that, is an uninformed opinion, because you can't do that because you're risking flood control. And remember, Oroville almost, it was like an inch from failing.
Yeah.
And had it failed, it would have risked the lives of,
gosh,
I don't know how many thousands of people. So, part of the mandate is flood control for life safety and
Yes.
property protection. So, but the message is that you have to figure out ways to move that water and put it in other places. And so you'll hear some rhetoric coming out of Sacramento that says, oh, well, we just need to do more groundwater recharge. Well, that's awesome. How do you get the water from spilling at Oroville to SBBA or Elsinore or Rancho or Orange County
Yeah.
to get it into groundwater recharge facilities? And I think the important thing also is when you see the picture of all of our reservoirs, statewide reservoirs full, it looks very rosy. But you're going to see 5 years in a row of those things empty the next time it gets dry. We're living in a world right now where we've had 3 relatively wet years in a row, and so those reservoir levels were in flood control releases. You're going to get to a 5-year period, a 10-year period in the next few decades where you're going to see those reservoirs at bare minimum levels again. And I've shown those pictures of Oroville almost empty.
Oh, yeah.
And that's when you're going to say, oh my gosh, all that water that was released should have been stuffed in all these other reservoirs so that those water levels didn't drop so fast.
Right, okay. All right,
Yeah, the state's got about roughly 2 years storage.
That's what it was before. It was 2
Yeah.
years of storage.
And Oroville went from full to essentially empty in that 2 years.
jeez. Wow. Did you have a comment? No? Okay. Thank you
Thank you, Joe.
for that pretty good news report. Okay, so we will move into director's reports and requests. Do we have a SAPA report, Mike?
We do. SAPA met yesterday. They received a legislative report. They're working on the budget, and they got a pretty major presentation of the general fund draft budget. This will all come together in the next month or so, and a annual budget will be adopted. And then they got an update on the Santa Ana River Habitat Survey that's pointed primarily at the Santa Ana sucker, but it does consider other species. They also got a briefing from their Sacramento lobbyists, West Coast Advisors. That's where I got the 5 million acre feet that would fill sites 3 times. It was just an interesting calculation they had done. But they also pointed out that in the state budget, the Water Resources Control Board is showing a cut of 5.77 million in cutting vacant general fund positions, but they're also showing 12.49 million in other funds vacant position cuts. And nobody knows exactly what that is, but the concern is that if some or all of that is in the permitting section, permitting is already painfully slow, and if it gets slower, it just makes everything worse, including constructing the infrastructure that we're all wishing we would construct. So I pointed that out to Michael earlier, but it's, I think, something we want to follow and perhaps try to weigh in on. And that's it for SAPA.
Thank you. Brenda?
Yes, Metropolitan. So, a couple of things. The committee assignments came out for Metropolitan, and so new committee assignments have been made out. I have been placed on 6 different committees.
Only 6?
Yeah. I kind of think that I was placed on some of these because I'm kind of there. So, which is fine, because there are some directors that have a harder time with their attendance. So and the committee names have changed as well. So there have been some changes with that, but one of the changes was the Community and Workplace Culture Committee, which I think formerly was the DEI committee for that. Engineering, Operations, and Technology remains the same. And then Finance, Affordability, Asset Management, and Efficiency Committee, so FAME, I'm on that committee. Legislation and Communications, Organization, Personnel, and Effectiveness Committee. And then I'm also placed on the Ad Hoc Committee for Executive Performance. So that just gives you kind of a breakdown what my future agenda life looks like. At the board meeting, well, a couple of things. At the board meeting, I was actually asked, after almost 4 years of being placed on the board, to do the invocation for the first time. So that was certainly something I'd never done before, and I was very honored to do it, because it being Women's History Month, so it was really nice, and I hope I gave an appropriate flavor to fold our agency into that, and highlight all of the things that are important about our agency, about Women's History Month, about employee. It was also National Employee Appreciation Day this month, and Irish Heritage Month. So I tried to do, you'd be amazed if you pull up the thing of a list of the months to see how many days there are. Like
Almost every day.
Yeah, almost every day has something of awareness, and various different holidays that are celebrated and acknowledged. Who knew there was a National Mermaid Day? And much to my chagrin, also the other day on the news, they brought forward that it was National Panda Day. So I was kind of entertained about that, and I'm sure that the zoo, I'm sure the zoo down in San Diego had a fabulous time with Panda Day. But in any case, it was certainly an honor, and I was pleased to do that. Also at the board meeting, we acknowledged a milestone service for one of the members who is going to be leaving our board. The 35-year, let me repeat that, the 35-year service pin was awarded to John Morris from the city of San Marino for his representation on the board, and that was his last meeting. He will be leaving the board. So we are very sad to see John go. He has a tremendous amount of history and knowledge. He certainly embraced me coming onto the board. He invited me to do my very first State Water Project tour with him. And boy, that guy has probably forgot more things than I'll ever learn about water. He is just an incredibly knowledgeable person. So I'm very sad to see him leaving our board. And then the other thing that I wanted to bring to your attention, and I wrote this down. I mean, it was a fairly easy board meeting. It went as expected. There were no surprises for a change, and it was pretty smooth. We did, in fact, approve the general manager's employment agreement retroactive to January 29th of 2025 for Devin Apatier. And it was approved by everybody. It was unanimously approved by everyone that with the board, which was a total of 96.77%. So really nice to see that he received the support for his contract to step into the role that he has been serving in, and the interim, and now it's all official, and all of the contracts are in place, and he will be paid accordingly. And then just a couple of other things. One of the committees that Engineering Committee, we had significant discussion. There was some very positive discussion over the heli hydrants. And a Wells Fargo hydrant that was talked about and worked with, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Wells Fargo helped by donating the land in which it was constructed on, and so that helped along with the process. But Orange County is very proud of this. It's been well received. There was a lot of questions and a lot of comments about it, and a lot of talk about that. So with the fires and everything that's going on, and looking at multiple solutions, and looking at a full-pronged approach at how we tackle things and what is available to us, it was just an interesting discussion. And so I know that our board president has shown some interest in this in the past. I know that there's been some discussion at Aqua and some awards that have been given out for these things. So, I thought it was worth highlighting for our board. that there was just very positive discussion, and a lot of people wanted to figure out how can we go forward and fund these and partner with these? Where are they appropriate? Where would they be most helpful? And those types of things. So, and then the highlight I wanted to bring forward, huge honor. I was pleased to attend this event. The naming of the West End Tunnel for the San Jacinto Tunnel for Randy Record, to honor all of his history, all of his contributions from his father, from his family in the San Jacinto area. So his name is now official as part of that tunnel and the Colorado River system and everything that he's done for water over his many histories, generations that he's shared with his family. And so huge honor, huge attendance, well received and well deserved. So I was pleased to be a part of that event. And with that, I think that is all I have. And just to add another comment, Laura, I want you to know that you were the inspiration for me for the invocation on a big part of that, and I ended up using that Chat GPT.
It's fun.
It was very entertaining for me to do the poem, and the poem was well received, and I had a lot of people that asked me for a copy of that. And so I just wanted to thank you for your inspiration for me to just kind of venture into something that I didn't know much about and was a little nervous about.
Yeah.
And it went off very, very well. So thank you for that.
Oh, thank you.
I know, and it turned out really a very lovely poem.
It's
it
like,
really
oh,
did.
I can use
so
it for this.
yeah,
Oh, I
it
can
really
use it for this.
it really did. So I'll so there you go.
All right. Have fun with it.
Yeah.
All done?
Yep, all done.
Okay. Chino Basin Water Master.
Water Master Board meets next week. The advisory committee meets this week and will receive the proposed annual budget. At Water Master, the budget is actually adopted and approved by the advisory committee and concurred with by the board at a later vote. And should the board not agree with what the advisory committee has adopted, they can either send it back to the advisory committee, and if they cannot reach agreement, then it goes to the judge, who will say, this is the number. So that has not happened in my time. I'm not sure it's ever happened, but there have been instances where there were discussions back and forth to get concurrence on what the budget should look like. I don't think that will happen this time. And that's it.
Okay. CDA, we did meet on March 6th. It was just a couple items on the agenda. One was approve Amendment 1 with Step Saver Companies for the supply and delivery of medium source sodium chloride, which is salt. And we've been, during COVID, there were some times when salt was very hard to get, whether it was the supplier's ship was stuck somewhere or whatever it was. So we have done this as a backup. We had, and I think we still have Morton salt, but the price has gone up quite a bit, like so many components of everything. So that went through, and it went through the committee structure at CDA, and so that passed unanimously. And then the other item was Amendment 2 to the agreement between San Bernardino County and the Chino Basin Desalter Authority, and this had to do with the Chino Airport plume, which I think the last meeting I mentioned that Mike and I attended the CDA History 101 kind of presentation. And that has certainly helped me get more of a visual of where the desalters are and where the plumes are and those kinds of things. So that was very helpful. And so that was really it for the meeting, but we do have a tour of both desalters I think it's the 26th. I have it on my calendar. But I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, I believe it's the 26th next week. So it had to be postponed due to rain, but that's when it's going to happen. So I look forward to going on that. And next would be RCRA.
But before we do that, why does a desalter need to buy salt?
Oh, Mike, don't ask me that question, because they said that at the meeting, and then I don't remember what they said, the reason. The ion exchange. It was very scientific. But they even joked about it at the meeting. People ask, why do we have to buy salt when we're a desalter? And I'm like, what was the answer to that question? So thank you for answering that. Okay, now we can go to RCRA.
RCRA meets quarterly, so.
Oh,
yeah,
okay, it'll
so
be
we
a
will-
while.
yeah,
Okay. And WRCOG.
WRCOG, we did have the Women's History event here in this building. It was, well, the tickets were free, but it was definitely a sold-out event. And well-attended. It was pouring rain that day, so I just wanted to thank everyone that helped with that setup of the room, taking care of it, allowing WRCOG to use this building again. We had to move it from the training room to this room because it instantly filled up, and so they needed more space. And I kind of said, you know, next year you might want to consider having to move it to an even bigger venue if you've got people on a waiting list, because we can't cram everybody into the room. And then I believe, because this has now been closed and recorded, that I can talk about the sale for the building of WRCOG. Yeah, so WRCOG is now finished. We've closed escrow, everything has been recorded, and we now have a new building. So we'll be leaving the lease building over at University Avenue and going to and I don't know the address specifically, but it's over off of Chicago. And there are a few tenants in the building, but there is adequate space for what we're trying to do. And it was a complete sale, so there's no balloon payments, no interest, no debt service, nothing. So as we move forward, and we'll be able to keep some tenants in that space as well, so there will be some revenue generated off of that to accommodate that. But I think all in all, it's a good move, because the lease was just a little bit tough to do in the space that we're currently in, and to keep going, and the escalators and all the different things. So more to come on that as we progress forward, but it'll probably be several months before we're actually ready to move and take over the space. So that is all I have for WRCOG.
Okay, Sarah?
Finally met. It was a very short meeting, just one agenda item, was election of the officers.
Oh.
And Andy Morris will be the president, and William Planmer will be the vice chair for the next season. And that was it. And there was a acceptance of in the consent calendar, they talked about the acceptance of the President's Special Recognition Award received for from the association, from Aqua, Joint Power Insurance Authority, for the Santa Rosa Regional Authority, and that's what something we acknowledge that they have received.
Nice.
And that was it.
Okay, Aqua?
Aqua, so we have, next week is their legislative symposium. So they've invited people to come to that. And I can't remember which lawmaker it was that is now the keynote speaker. That has just eluded me. And then I also have a meeting for the Aqua JPIA Liability Insurance Committee for all of that. That will be meeting up in Sacramento next week as well. So I'll be in attendance to that, and I'll have a report when we come back.
Okay. Director's comments. Do you want to start, Mike?
Sure, I'll start and I'm finished.
Okay. All right, asked and answered, right? Brenda, do you have any director comments?
Just a reminder, a big event for Marietta is the annual Fireman's Barbecue is coming up, and I believe it's on April the 12th. It's a Saturday, the second Saturday of the month. So usually several thousand people attend that, and the barbecue sells out before the end of the event. So
Okay. And I think that's the same weekend as the March
it's the same weekend as the air show.
thing, yeah.
Yes.
Director Torres?
Yes. So I just wanted my update. Hello, everyone. I wanted to just talk about RAC. I did attend RAC. This is the very first time I was appointed. There was one meeting I wasn't able to attend, and then nothing. So I was able to attend, and as Craig said, I was watching the meeting, listening to everything going on. It was very evident to me that we were not financially responsible for anything, but I did call him afterwards, said, what are we doing there? Yeah, but it was interesting to understand the process that they take in their wastewater in the wastewater arena, but I think as Craig said, it is important for us to make sure that their discharges are done in time, in a timely manner, and well done. So, I mean, I had a great time because they talked about NPDS in a very different way than we do here. So I loved it. But yeah, it was a good meeting. I'm happy to be appointed to that committee. And then I had the chance to attend the WELL conference. It was just 2 days. You all know my favorite thing about conferences is the networking. And so just seeing a lot of our friends, I'm part of their WELLO, I'm part of their fellowship, the WELLOs. And so it was good to see some of those people. But the most interesting part was during the Saturday conference. They talked about Prop 4 funding. And the state is itching to get that money out in case anything changes nationally. And so they talked about how to apply, what the funds are available for, different ideas to receive funding. So that was actually a very interesting part of the conference. And that's my update.
Okay.
Alrighty. Yes, so I attended the W.R. Cox Women's History Month celebration here. It was a great event. As you said, Director Denstead, her poem, her dedication, it was beautiful. ChatGPT did a good job, whatever she put it in. The result was beautiful. So we really enjoyed the presentation about advice for next generation of leaders, women leaders, was really good about kindness and how to deal with it. So it was very nice, and I'm glad that was my first time attending that event. So it was very nice. So that's about it. It was a great event. Thank you. Thank you all for putting.
And I had the opportunity also to attend that event, even though I wanted to be in two places so I could go see the tunnel naming, but it was a wonderful event. Enjoyed the panel and the speaker, and seeing the room full was just kind of cool. I thought it was, you did a really good job with it. I think that's probably my only comment, but we'll go to requests for future agenda items. Anybody have anything? Okay, I would like to ask that the heli hydrant concept come to committee with just maybe background information and ways that folks are partnering. I realize heli hydrant is not applicable to every location. There's only certain areas where they're going to be of more benefit. But it's just been something that ever since I saw the first presentation at Aqua and went out and met with the folks at Rainbow, that I just haven't been able to move away from it. And then the more I hear about other people
There's
being able to put them in and learn about them and all of that. So I would love to have that brought to a committee meeting so we can go from there after the fact. So that's it for that. We already got to hear, and thank you for highlighting those things on the investment report, Rick. Appreciate that. I think our next meeting is not really March 26th.
April 2nd.
And even though I've canceled the meeting.
Oh, my goodness.
The system won't let me, and it wouldn't let me change it on the agenda. So I
Ask
Wow.
apologize.
ChatGPT.
So what is the
So
real,
The actual meeting is
They
April
sure are.
2nd.
April 7?
Second?
Second, okay, okay. 2 weeks. All right, so the next meeting is April 2nd. You heard it here first. And we will adjourn at, oh yeah, I have my new clock. That isn't new. 11:19. All right, thank you, everybody.